Hey everybody, this is Coach K. I am just coming to share some information today. So currently we are embarking on one of the most famous holidays in the United States, and it's 4th of July, Independence Day, right? And so many people are preparing for family gatherings, social gatherings, cookouts, various things in celebration of this upcoming holiday. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to let some people know that there are other things going on. So bear with me as I shed some light on some interesting finds that should be interesting to many people. What you see on your screen is basically a caption from a news article that says the new CERN Hadron Collider experiment sparks July 5th. And some conspiracy theorists even labels it as a doomsday. So what's really going on? I want to talk about it. So what is CERN? Well, CERN is basically an organization that began in 1954. And they proclaim to have made significant breakthroughs both in particle physics, such as their early discovery of neutral currents, and technologies that have helped improve our day-to-day lives, including the World Wide Web, very commonly used. Okay, so if you ever wondered where it derived from, where this technology came from, there you have it. All right, so let's find out more about CERN. So in December 9th of 1949, at the end of the Second World War, European science was like no longer considered world class. And so you had some people get together and they begin to work on the origins or the beginning of what we now know as CERN, okay? And then a further push came at the 5th UNESCO General Conference that was held in Florence in June of 1950, okay? And that's when they basically decided to form some type of a regional research laboratory and to try to increase international scientific collaboration. And so that's how it began. So they made the decision to form the laboratory. And so it would be a nuclear accelerator, but it would be independent from having any ties with the military. So now they had to figure out where were they going to build, okay? And so they did decide after talking about it, having meetings, that the CERN laboratory during its third session, that it would be built in Geneva, okay? So then a year later, they did draft a convention and it was finally completed and took them about 18 months, but it was approved unanimously by the representatives of the 11 countries that had signed the original agreement, plus the UK, and the document was made available for signature, okay? And that's when the CERN Convention established financial contributions that were calculated on the basis of net national income over recent years so that each state pays according to their means. So they basically were now able to form a European organization for nuclear research. All right. And the 12 founding member states was Belgium, Denmark, France, the Federal Republic of Germany, Greece, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom and Yugoslavia. Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit briefly about some of the things that they created. So they had the synchrocyclotron that basically its job was to concentrate on nuclear physics alone. Okay, so it was a powerful machine for its time. Then in 1959, the proton synchrotron began, and its job was to basically accelerate protons, and it did so for the first time in November of 1959. And so based off the observations from the research and the testing that they've done, they've realized that we have matter and we have antimatter. The difference basically is that they're like a mirror reflection of each other. Okay. We talk about the Big Bang theory about how the universe was made. Okay. As a result of that, matter and antimatter was created. And it's believed that we have more matter than antimatter. However, what an antimatter particle is compared to matter, they're identical. But they actually have opposite spins in their electric charge. Okay, so if you took a cup of antimatter water and threw it into a body of matter water, there will be an explosion. They can exist both in their own essence, but it doesn't affect each other until they come into contact with each other, okay? And so moving forward, without touching on every single thing that they've done historically, I'm going to touch on some major historical moments. So basically, they realized that by colliding or through collisions of protons, that something happens. And as a result of that something, they became more intrigued and understood more things about how we exist and also about the universe. Okay, so this is something that prompted a lot of future projects to help further our understanding on what happens with the interactions from colliding protons. And that's what ultimately led to the Large Hadron Collider. And that's something that I want you to remember. I'm going to call it the LHC. Remember that, because we're going to talk about that and why is that important about what's going to take place on July 5th of 2022. All right. I just want to point out, so some of us actually enjoy the touch screen features of our devices. Well, this technology was used by CERN way back in 1972. So they realized that in order for them to run their operation, it would be best if they ran it underground because it needed a lot of space and it needed a place to be able to contain if any mishaps took place, right? Because they were venturing down the unknown, okay? They were actually causing collisions, right? Now, granted, it may not be the same effect as colliding two cars together in the middle of a busy intersection, but nonetheless, the same effect. They were just using protons, and as a result of that, they were increasing what they were doing. The magnitude of it became large, and so they built a tunnel that would be able to hold this building that will contain its research machines and technology. And so in 1981, they actually conducted their first proton and antiproton collision, which produced many important results before it was closed down in 1984. So part of what they did, I'm going to attempt to try to explain it in layman's terms. By colliding the various particles that they used with the anti part of that particle, it caused something to, as I stated earlier, explode. And as a result of the explosion, other things started to spark other things. And so that's when they realized that there were such things as quarks and gluons. And so now they have the LEP, and the LEP was a large electron position collider. So now they needed a bigger area, a bigger machine to handle bigger collisions, okay? And so they had to go back and make a bigger tunnel. And this is what happened in 1988. So they did successfully use the LEP, and it was used for 11 years of research. And then it was closed down on November 2nd in 2000, okay? But nonetheless, I want to point out that in 1990, they did develop the first browser/editor website and a server to go live. And as you know, technology has improved vastly on the World Wide Web. And, you know, I'm grateful that this is one of the tools I'm using to even make this video to keep you guys informed as well as to be informed. The superconducting magnet, it was built and turned on in 2006. So the magnet is called the barrel toroid because of its barrel-like shape, as you can see in the picture on your screen. But basically, it's one of the major particle detectors taking data at the LHC. So it's huge, it's big, it takes a lot of energy to run, but it was needed so that the LHC can start. And in 2008, the LHC was started up. Okay, so It was ran for the first time, and the machine was ready to embark on a new era of discovery at high energy frontiers. The LHC experiments address questions such as what gives matter its mass, okay? What's the invisible 96% of the universe made of? Why nature prefers matter to antimatter, and how matter evolved from the first instance of the universe's existence. So these are the types of things that prompted these scientists to continue forging ahead over decades of research to try to answer these questions. They basically want to know what is beyond the earth, what's out there, and so they believe that this research will prompt them in finding out these answers. Well, in 2008, they had a small incident, as so they reported. A malfunction resulted in a mechanical damage and a release of helium from the magnet. They said that they got it fixed. It was contained. No one was injured. Well, in 2012, they discovered what they call the God particle. This particle helps give mass to all elementary particles that have mass, such as electrons and protons, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the LHC. So we talked about how it's funded, who pays for this large machine to run, all right? But it basically boosts particles, such as protons, that form all matter that we know. It accelerates them, and then it collides it with other protons to see what happens as a result of it. And because of those collisions, they produce massive particles. And one of those particles was identified as the God particle, right? Which is a top quark. So the quark and the gluons, like we talked about earlier, they're pretty much like what happens as a result of the collision. So what I envision, and this may not be a technical analysis, but you know how when someone is welding something and the iron and the fire colliding or coming into contact, it causes the spark to fly out from it, right? One of those sparks, if you will, was the quark, the top quark that they now call the God particle, right? But the point I'm trying to make is the technology that they use to discover it. They also realize the four forces of nature from this line of research: the strong force, the weak force, the electromagnetic force, and the gravitational force. In 2021, they talk about how scientists discover a new fifth force of nature, like gravity and electromagnetism. 3 years ago, CERN shut down LHC to do some maintenance, some upgrades, and various things. And so now, as of April of this year, they have restarted the LHC. They are ready and preparing to use it to full capacity July 5th, 2022. So what does that mean? They're basically going to run their third run, okay? And they're hoping to find the fifth force of nature. Like, we don't know what to expect. We don't know what this does. We don't know. The scientists have more of an idea of why they're doing what they're doing, but the average person has no idea how this will affect where we live, where we are, and what's going on around us. Some people theorize that the God particle could possibly be the end of the universe. Why? Because if the subatomic particle that is crucial for a stable universe should ever become destabilized, it could create chaos in the universe, possibly swallowing up everything in its path, leaving nothing but a cold, dark void. Now, we don't know if this is something that will happen. All we know is that on the 5th of July, they're going to restart this LHC at an unprecedented level of collision energy. And granted, it's underground. Granted, it's in Switzerland. But what does that mean? What if it goes wrong? What could happen? Some question whether or not it can create a black hole. Now, they say it's unlikely. However, there are some theories that suggest the formation of tiny quantum black holes may be possible. So the observation of such an event would be thrilling for them. It gives them a greater detail of understanding of the universe, but they claim it will also be perfectly safe if it does. Black holes form in space when certain stars, much larger than our sun, collapse in themselves and at the end of their lives. They concentrate a very large amount of matter in a very small space, and they're so dense that the gravity that they exert is such that not even light can travel out of them. So there's speculations about the black holes at the LHC that refer to particles produced in the collisions of pairs of protons. These are microscopic or quantum black holes, but scientists are not at all sure that quantum black holes really exist. Well, nonetheless, if the LHC, once it's turned on the 5th, if it does create a black hole, it will confirm some things for the scientists. They would confirm that the universe is not four-dimensional, and that there are other dimensions, which wouldn't be that hard to fathom, right? They would basically be excited about that because it would give them more things to research as well as answer some things to the current questions they're seeking answers for. But what does that mean for all of us? There's no obvious application for knowing about this. Many people will start speculating about using these extra dimensions for space and time travel or as a source of clean energy or who knows what else. But it is rather tempting to compare it to the discovery of magnetism by the Phoenicians, who could not foresee that electricity and magnetism would completely reshape modern life. Should the LHC explode, it says that the impact will be sufficient to completely obliterate a large metropolitan area. Wow. So how the LHC works, it basically propels charged particles, such as protons or electrons, at high speeds, close to the speed of light, that are smashed into either a target or other particles that are circulating in the opposite direction. And by studying these collisions, physicians are able to probe the world of the infinitely small. So the whole point of this is to find out more about the big, vast universe by getting to know its smallest, almost undetectable matter of being. So we can get a better understanding of what's out there in a place that we cannot reach, a place that we cannot go. We can't just jump in our cars and go visit, right? There was some footage I came across that talked about a CERN doctor that was there and what he witnessed. And he suggests that something evil is being hidden by CERN. And he goes into detail about an incident that took place where the elite were there. Well, they call the family. And they met. And the individual who's in charge was titled Father because they were a family. Now, they were not, it didn't imply that they were actually blood relatives, but being a part of this, one of the physicists, they were considered family. Not as in relation, but as an organization. And so the father was a female, and she had an agenda to push the LHC to the max. And she did it without considering how the others felt about it. There were some objections, but nonetheless, she listened and she kept going, and she told them where to go, what to do, and they were to stay and participate and watch it work. And when it did, he described a light that was so bright that none of them could see it. He described hearing someone scream as if they were being mauled to death. And then after the light left, he said there was complete and utter darkness. And they began to sound out who they were with their codes to identify if everyone was okay. But Father did not respond. And so the generators kicked in, and they seen the low, dim lights kick on from the generators, and they were able to make out shadows, but This individual went down the hall and turned on the lights from the breaker, and that's whenever he heard the commotion back in the room they were in. So he hurried back down the hall and went into the room, and father's belongings, clothing, everything was slumped in the chair, but the being was gone. They no longer existed in this dimension, in this realm, in this world. And they never found her. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows what that white light meant. What was the scream? What happened? What was opened? What came through? And what left? And did something take her? We don't know. So again, we don't know what's to come on July 5th. But it's just something for you to think about. And while our imagination can allow us to create things on this screen and make them appear to be real, we can create in our minds what other galaxies look like, what other universes look like, and even what other beings, aliens, and all these other imageries that exist. But in the real world, what is really out there, we don't know. And so you have two presentations of how we came into existence. You have the Big Bang Theory, and then we have faith and religions that say otherwise. And so the Big Bang Theory basically states that there was a big bang, and as a result of that, over the course of millions and billions of years, there were occurrences that took place. That first there was this cosmic inflation, and once it ended, then protons formed. And then after that came helium and lithium. They became synthesized. And then we had the first stars form. And all of this, they're saying through science, was pretty much a chain reaction over a course of time. And then our galaxy formed, the stars formed, our sun was formed, the Earths and other planets was formed, and so on and so forth, okay? And so that's what the Big Bang Theory basically teaches. And so if we think about what the LHC does, how it takes protons and collides them together in various particles and collides them together to see what the collision will bring out or spark from it, to determine what other types of matter exists and where and how they exist and how they were formed. And ultimately, it can be presumed that they're trying to support not only the Big Bang Theory, but to try to just recreate that in a lab. Recreate God particles to determine how the universe is stabilized. Could it be because they want to know how to control it? How to destabilize it? How powerful would man be considered if they could control the universe? Right? But for the people that believe through their faith of how man and this world came into existence, they believe that God saw this void and created it in a certain amount of days, 6 days, and rested on the seventh day in the Christian faith. And though I'm not familiar with every faith, I'm not familiar with every religious belief about the creation of life on earth, but I am most familiar with the Christian point of view, as well as the Big Bang Theory. I find it intriguing that they called the Higgs boson to be the God particle. And that it in itself is so intriguing that they want to know more about how to recreate this God particle so they can study it and learn more about it. You see, because once the LHC is activated on July 5th, 2022, I don't know for how long it will run. All I know is that all those magnets will be turned on. There'll be some collision of particles happening, and a lot of data will be collected. It will be then after that the real work begins, because now they have to read and the research. They have to read what the data interprets. They have to break it down to where now not only have they an understanding of what the collision caused, but also how to manipulate it, how to interpret it for use. So hypothetically, if they were to be able to create a black hole, or if they were able to understand the universe and how to maybe make a portal between dimensions, if that is such a thing, so that they can outsource some resources or go and travel. If man knew that this planet was doomed, was going to self-destruct after a period of time, certainly they would pay top dollar to know how to go somewhere else and live. But just the idea of that, being able to escape a planet that's doomed, and knowing that there's an ability to do that, certainly I believe there would be someone or people that would definitely try to capitalize on that. Time travel or whatever. That's always a science fiction that's exciting and seems far-fetched, but yet is it? Well, these types of researches that is going on, more in particular the LHC that is going on, we really don't know factually what they're really looking for and what they plan to do with the information that they obtain from their research. We can only go by what they provide to us publicly, which is pretty much what I shared with you in this video. At the end of the day, you can only believe what you believe, and you can only know what is your truth. But I find it intriguing that even though in the Bible it mentions that the earth was void, that science does support something considered to be void, otherwise known as a black hole. The black hole that is formed when a star larger than our sun pretty much self-destructs. It comes to the end of its life. And the gravitational forces that is in the midst of it is so strong that light can't even escape. Now, if you are of the Christian faith, that can speak volumes. Because we learn in scripture that darkness can never overcome light, right? And here we have a science that states that that is possible through the forces, such as gravitational forces. There are books that were not included in the Bible or were removed after a certain amount of time where the Bible existed, and certain books was extracted for various reasons. You can look it up, do your own research. But there is a particular book called the Book of Enoch, Enoch. And in reading that, it talks about a lot of things that pertain to outer space, if you will, the heavens, right? And so there are a lot of things, a lot of correlations that it is very intriguing to read about. And then when you hear about what's going to go down on July 5th, it kind of makes you wonder, how does all of it tie together? How does God and science all tie together? How does it all play a role with each other? What's really going to become of our future? with the research that's happening in our faces, right under our noses, but yet so oblivious to so many. What's really going on behind the scenes that the media keeps us distracted from? Well, I don't have the answers, ladies and gentlemen, but I can tell you that here at Mixed Views, we definitely entertain many notions about the things of this world that people do have a mixed view about. Now, there's the obvious, the science versus religion. But could it all really tie together in some way, shape, or form? Well, the more you read, the more you expand your mind, the more you open yourself up to being open-minded about the possibilities, the more you'll find that there is a lot to learn. And while these scientists are on this path of research, they are looking specifically into something. It's not to be overlooked that they're looking for a reason. And I beg to differ that it is not just because of curiosity's sake. I believe that there is always an intent whenever funding is involved, whenever people from various countries and states are actually pouring in money for particular research. Now, there are many things that are research worthy. Cure of cancer. Cure of the common cold, for crying out loud, right? The COVID pandemic, of all things, came, and now we're hearing about the monkeypox or something of that nature. There's always something, right? There's always something medically related. And then you always can think about the various reactions from holistic medicines to Western medicines and pharmaceuticals. And, so we can go back and forth all day. But the research is what allows for us to be able to obtain information to make a sound decision that's best for ourselves and our families. But when it comes to this level of research, the common person could care less about how much research they're doing and why, because it doesn't directly impact them. Common cold can impact the average household. COVID lately, yes, definitely widespread. Cancer, wow, constantly evident, widespread. So those are things that are definitely common for people to be concerned with. But things like the Big Bang Theory, a black hole, multi-dimensional universe, those things go over people's heads. However, it is something to be concerned with, because if people are paying top dollar to reinstate this machine, to go after 3 years of being upgraded, and to go active on the 5th of July of 2022, they are looking for something. They have found the God particle, as they call it, but they feel there is still something more. My mixed view, my conspiracy theory, is that they want to know what's out there. And they also want to know how they can interact with what's out there. Maybe to benefit this planet, or maybe to escape this planet. I don't know. But I do believe that there is more out there. And there's things that is beyond our comprehension, as we know it in this day and age of the human race. But I believe we shall find out more after July 5th. I'm praying that it will not be an explosion or an implosion. I'm praying that there will not be a metropolitan area demolished and obliterated because of a wrong turn or a malfunction. I'm praying that whatever they discover will not be used to our demise as the human race on this planet. I'm praying that we all will survive whatever is to come. But this show, Mixed Views, is here to give you information that'll make you think. Either put some things into perspective or make you realize that, I never thought about it that way. I didn't quite see it that way. And we thank you for spending this time with us. We thank you for tuning in, and we hope that you will continue to tune in for future episodes of the Mixed Views podcast show. We're definitely excited about being able to share whatever we discover or come across so that we can help spread information. And at this point in time, we definitely need to be informed. So hopefully you feel informed and you feel led to look into some things for your own self. I appreciate your time. I thank you for tuning in. This is Coach K with Mixed Views Podcast Show, and we look forward to seeing you again. Much love and success. God bless.